Hello and welcome to Sheikhy's football show in syndicate with EPL Index. Um, Also, you can find us on our show called Sheikhy's Sports Journeys by searching YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or Podbean. You will find podcasts from cricket to rugby to football to other elite sports, as well as evolving into speaking to other people from other walks of life. Even just had on an actress just recently. So there is something for absolutely everybody. But today, our football show is back for a second episode. I'm joined by my panel, my co-host, Mr. Flanners, and I'm also joined by Dave Hendrick of the Two Footed Podcast, highly regarded football podcaster.
Hello.
How you doing, Dave? Hope you're well, mate. And launching straight into this today. Oh, sorry, and just to give a special mention to our special guest, as you can see at the bottom, he isn't actually on the podcast, but thank you to Eddie Gibbs for joining us. What a lovely, lovely picture. So, gents, since we spoke last, Mr. Neil Lennon has resigned from Celtic. I'll come to you first, Dave. Thoughts? Are you gutted? Have you shed rivers of tears?
No, absolutely not. Tears of joy, tears of relief on the news. And look, it's not Neil Lennon's fault that this all went the way it went. He came back when the club needed him. When Rodgers walked away mid-season, they needed somebody to step in. He did what was asked of him, saw out that season, and that should have been it. He should have been thanked for his service as a player and a manager, and the club should have moved on, but they didn't. And, look, last season we got away with a few bits. You guys pushed us, and then you had a big dip, and then football stopped. And because of that, we were given the league title. But this season, it's been clear he's out of his depth. He can't compete with Gerrard. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him for this taking so long. He should have been relieved of his duties in about October. The board have to carry the can for this, but they've hid behind him. They've allowed him to be the scapegoat, the whipping boy, to take all the abuse, all the negativity, all the criticism, and they've just very slowly and quietly slinked away in the background and gotten away with it. And it's ruined the season. It's ruined 10 in a row. 10 in a row was always going to be tough. I mean, you just need to look at Juventus and see they'd won 9 in a row and they're falling apart as well. So it was always going to be tough, but Lennon wasn't the manager for the club at this point. They needed somebody else after Rodgers, another progressive manager who'd carry on the work that Rodgers had done. Lennon stepped in. He should have stepped out. It is what it is.
You sort of, Dave, I feel like it got to a point where it was just getting dragged on and on and on. And for someone in that position under the media watch on such a regular basis, how's the directors not stepped in quicker and stopped it and ended the pain? It baffles me.
I really don't know. I genuinely don't know how they haven't made this decision months ago that he needed to go. And then whether they were scared of the backlash if they fired him, I don't know. But the fan base has been calling for him to go for months. So I don't know what the issue was. Were they worried that if they fired him, they'd have to pay off his contract? Or are they being cheap? I really don't know. But I mean, the decisions made last summer in terms of the last 2 summers in terms of transfers and in terms of Lennon have just led to a poor squad that's completely unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go and you sell one of your best young players in January.
Mm-hmm.
There's rumors of other young players wanting to leave. It seems like the club needs, I don't know, not a complete rebuild, but it needs reworking from top to bottom.
Yeah. I think it's potential. They may be waiting for someone, in the wings, a manager. They try to drag it out as long as possible. And there's been some big names thrown around. I've seen Eddie Howe and I've seen a few lads throwing Rafa Benitez in the mix, but I'm sure Rafa's got better things to do than go up to Scotland and manage an absolute chaotic club like Celtic. But any names, Dave, you've heard that would be in the running for the Celtic job, or anyone you'd like to sort of see take that job on?
I mean, I did kind of think that Rafa Benitez would be the one because, like you say, there was that idea that the reason they're holding on to Lennon is they're waiting for somebody to become available. He was contracted to the Chinese club. Then he leaves that job in like early January. And there's been nothing about him since Lennon resigned. So I don't know whether they can't afford him, whether he'd want too much control. There's been a couple of names. Eddie Howe, you mentioned. I feel like he'll wait for a Premier League job or, you know, a more London-centric South of England job. I think Rafa would be interested because it's obviously a big club.
Yeah.
There's a great opportunity to win silverware. If you give him the type of control he'd want, he could probably reshape the club quite well. And I think he'd quite enjoy going head-to-head with one of the key people who got him sacked as Liverpool manager as well.
I was going to say, the relationship there was a little bit heated, was it not? In the end, Gerrard.
Yeah. Well, Stevie always felt he was a central midfielder, and everybody who watched him play knew he wasn't because he didn't have the discipline. Mm-hmm. So Rafa played him as a 10, and he was the best player in England for a couple of years. And then Stevie and Carragher went behind his back, got him fired, got Hodgson appointed, which says all you need to know about the two of them. You know, just snaky behavior from Stevie G. But I don't know. There's a couple of names going around that don't exactly fill you with enthusiasm. I mean, Paul Lambert's name's been mentioned this week. I genuinely couldn't think of anybody worse. He's been atrocious for years now. He just got sacked at Ipswich. So, like, if you can get sacked at Ipswich having done a bad job and then get the Celtic job, it would really be a bit of a stinging indictment against the state of Scottish football. If, you know, that's the best they could attract. Walter Mazzari is a name going around. He's not very good. He was good at Napoli a few years back, a long amount of years back, 8 years ago. Did a bad job at Inter Milan, did a bad job at Watford, did a bad job at Torino. You can't get a big job off the back of doing bad jobs, is my view. I'd never want, like, if whatever club you support, like you say for Hibs, if Hibs decided to change manager, you wouldn't want a guy who's been sacked in his last 3 or 4 jobs. You know, you want someone who's coming in on a high, who you feel has a bit of confidence and arrogance about them, the players can get inspired by. Who's going to look at Paul Lambert and go, oh yeah, you got sacked by Ipswich in League One. You're great, Jet. You're going to get us back up the table. No problem, mate.
But he's a Celtic man, Dave. He's a Celtic man, and the people will be like, "Oh, bring him in." I think this is absolutely crucial for this club now. Rangers are going to win the league. It's a change of the guard. Whoever comes in next, it has to be a huge appointment, because you're right. They're going to shape the club from the ground upward. It's a proper challenge, and it's up to the board now to get it right. And
that's the thing. Like, Rangers needed a change. Rangers needed a big cultural change. So they went away from anyone with any link to Rangers. They went for Gerrard. Big name. Okay, no managerial experience, but a legendary player.
Big risk.
Exactly. A risky signing, but one that, like, there was no player sat in that Rangers dressing room that first day that wasn't looking at him and going, oh my God, that's Steven Gerrard. Like, that's Steven Gerrard. In the same way that when Rodgers went to Celtic, now admittedly he'd been sacked at Liverpool, but the expectations at Liverpool are a little bit different. There was no player in that dressing room that wasn't going, like, this guy almost won the league with Liverpool. This guy's managed at the top of the Premier League. I'm going to need to up my game for him. The same way the Rangers boys with Gerrard, every one of them knew, if I don't up my game, I'm out the door here. And you're right. Celtic need to break away from anybody with Celtic links. Like, it can't be. They can't just go with Kennedy because he knows the club, because that'll end up in the situation like you had at Bournemouth, where they appointed the long-time assistant and nothing got changed after Howe. You need a fresh start. You need new ideas, a new voice in the room. I wouldn't be against Howe at all. I think he'd be a very good appointment. I just don't think he'd take it. But somebody who can inspire the dressing room and bring new ideas and new identity, the same way Rodgers did. Rodgers was a big, ambitious, aggressive appointment. Rodgers was, Rangers, you know the way we've won this many in a row? You know how we've won all these titles in a row? Now we're appointing an even better manager. Sit down. We're going to keep this going. That's what Celtic need to do. Somebody that Rangers are going to go, Oh, don't like that. Don't like that at all. If we appoint Lambert,
It all
Rangers
sounds,
will laugh. Sheikhy, you will laugh if we appoint Lambert, won't you?
look, this all sounds like wishful thinking, if you ask me. I don't think Benitez is going to be sitting licking his lips right now at the prospect of coming to Celtic at this moment in time. I think, look, it would be a fantastic appointment, but I think it's wishful thinking. I think the board are going to be the problem in bringing in a good manager as well, because they're not exactly painting themselves in a good light at the moment. Whether or not they'll be able to get something over the line such as that, it'll be interesting to see. I think you've touched on the other thing that was really interesting was Neil Lennon really wanted to dig his heels into this role. He made it pretty clear that he didn't do walking away. And I thought it was strange. It was actually Flanners that mentioned this to me earlier. I thought it was strange that he decided to walk away just before the Old Firm game is coming up soon, which does strike me as walking away. And I don't want to just pile into Neil Lennon altogether. I think the board have got a lot to answer for. I think the way he had some of his outbursts with the media, that was the time to know that, listen, his time's up. And the board, I think, I've just hung him out to dry, as you said, Dave. But yeah, just to go before the Rangers soon to be Old Firm game was very, very strange. I thought he might have just seen it out and tried to maybe get a victory in that game and leaving some sort of a high note of some nature. But then you look at the other side.
In all likelihood, you guys are getting crowned champions that day.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. So moving over to the other side of the Glasgow. Glasgow Rangers, it's been absolutely fantastic to watch them this season. I don't think you can simply say Celtic have been bad. I have to, Rangers have played fantastic football. I don't know if you watched the game the other night in Europe. The attacking, they've gone from being a team that I didn't really feel that last year they were very good on the attacking front. It was a work in progress, but this year they've got plenty of options, from Morelos to Kent to Hadji. Really, really exciting to see the way Rangers are playing. The midfield is strong. The defence was and has been pretty consistent. I thought, again, on those two legs in the European fixture were a little bit all over the place. Both teams were at the back. But just some comments, please, on the mighty Glasgow Rangers. They're playing fantastic football. It's mouth-watering to watch. What's your thoughts, chaps?
There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, the football is good. I generally try and avoid the Europa League. It's a little below my pay grade. But no, you are playing good football. I did watch the highlights of those games against Antwerp. Now, I reckon I could probably find 11 lads in the local town that could give Antwerp a decent game.
Were they not second? Are they not like second in the Belgium league?
Is that meant to be impressive? That's like been the second best lookout on the Titanic.
Come on, Belgium are up there as one of the best.
No, the national team are, but none of them play in Belgium. Like, it's the same thing. Like, the Scottish team is fairly good, but the national team is good, but the league is not good because most of the best players play out of Scotland. No, like, Club Brugge are running away with the Belgian league this year. Antwerp are not very good. They're very open side. They're easy to play against. And you guys, you could see with Gerrard. Gerrard knew, like, we're going to outscore these. We don't really need to be all that worried if we can see a couple of goals. So, like, in the first leg, you win 4-3. And Gerrard's like, keep going. Just go and hammer them, like. So you just kept attacking, let them have the ball when they wanted it. You were never in any danger. The one thing with this Rangers season is, like, you look at it and obviously unbeaten in the league is a fantastic achievement. The wins over Celtic, impressive, but there's no real statement win. Like, there's no game you can point at and go, that win there, like, that shows. Like, I know you bet Hamilton 8-0, but again, like, you'd find lads in the park that beat Hamilton.
2-0 at Parkhead was a decent
2-0 at Parkhead was that's a very good result. But, like, your dominance in the Old Firm games, I think, haven't been reflected in the score lines, is what I'm saying. Like, you guys have completely outplayed Celtic in a couple of the Old Firm games over the last couple of years. And there hasn't been like a battering. And in Europe, you beat Galatasaray. That's the best result in Europe this season. The draws with Benfica, obviously very good. But again, I'm waiting for a real statement, especially in Europe. Like, it's an easy enough group. Standard Liège are poor. Poznan are poor. Antwerp are poor. Slavia Prague will be a really good test. They've just beaten Leicester. Yeah. If Rangers can go out and knock them out over 2 legs, I think that really does send a message, because obviously Celtic have been really poor in recent years in Europe. If you can go and beat Slavia Prague, and then you're into whatever, the round of 16 or is it the quarterfinals after that?
Yeah, it's 32 at the moment. Slavia Prague are no mean feat. The Czech team are top of the league at the moment as well. And I think I've got a horrible feeling about this. You know, when Rangers took over Manchester, and there was just so many Rangers fans at that UEFA Cup final. Oh no, not again.
I think, yeah. I mean, it's not an easy draw. Like I said, they beat Leicester, and as you mentioned, Flanners, they're top of their league. Mm-hmm. They've got a couple of really talented young players, and they've obviously produced Souček and Soufal, who are doing really well for West Ham. But I mean, after that, there's
Leicester flying though. It's a big result.
There's killers in that competition after that. You've got Ajax, Villarreal, Roma or Shakhtar Donetsk, Arsenal, Spurs, United or Milan.
Bring them on.
You know, but that's what I'm saying. But there's no reason to think if you win that game, having knocked out Leicester, that's going to give a massive confidence boost. And then,
like how Dave didn't mention Man United there.
Yeah, Milan will beat them, hopefully. What happens, Sheikhy? What happens if you get United next? What happens if United overcome Milan and Rangers overcome Slavia? Like, does your brain just start to split in half, or what happens for that?
Honestly, at this moment in time, I would worry a little bit about them at the back. I think Man U obviously have got abundance of speed up front. It's always an emotional tie for me as well, because I'm a Rangers and Manchester United fan.
So that's what he's getting to, Sheikhy. He's like, he's asking you, who are you going to support in the night, mate?
I support Rangers in that fixture. Rangers were my first team. I'm a Glasgow boy, so I do. And when they met in the past in Europe, I supported Rangers as well. But again, the fixture doesn't terrify me. I think Rangers could score goals against Manchester United.
Oh yeah, that Rangers attack will have joy against United, no question at all. The pace and the movement of the likes of Morelos and Kent and Kemar Roof and Hadji, like, they're going to cause problems for pretty much anybody this season. But like, if Rangers can beat Slavia Prague, that's massive. The league is over; it's done. You have that one. That's brilliant, and obviously that's a massive relief. It's, you know, your first title in 10 years, first title for this iteration of Rangers after all the nonsense that went on under, you know, the previous incarnation. That's huge. And then obviously you're then free to focus on Europe. So all attention can go to it. And there's no reason at all that they couldn't beat Slavia Prague, go into the next round. I mean, with a bit of luck, they could draw Molde, wipe the floor with them, and then they're into the last 8.
For Scottish football, Dave, I think it's, you know,
it's brilliant for Scottish football.
It pains me it's to say it, but, you know, any time Celtic and Rangers do well in Europe, it is good for the game. It is good for our sport. And I think looking ahead to the Euros in the summer, when those pubs open and on June the 21st, I just, you know, after COVID-19, I just can't see how Scotland are not going to win the Euros this year. It's going for us.
But like,
why not? Why not?
That's the thing. It's all about confidence and momentum. And it's the same thing as why I'm saying you want to bring in a manager at Celtic coming off a high who'll inspire players. And Sheikhy may be right. Rafa could be a pipe dream, but it's the same thing for Rangers. Like, if for example, if they win the league this year, I don't know that guarantees Gerrard to stay if he gets an offer from a Premier League club. But if they do really well in Europe, if they got to like the semi-finals and they knocked out one of the big boys, and then they could head into the Champions League next year. Like, that's a great season rather than just a very good season where they've won the league. At the moment, it's shaped up to be a very good season. If they could get to the last 8 or the last 4 in Europe, that'd be incredible. And he's the type that will look at that and go, oh, I fancy more of that. I fancy Ibrox on European nights,
with crowds.
packed to the rafters, lunatics swinging from the stands, noise everywhere, opposition coming out, and just brown substance running down the back of their legs. I really think that's what will tie Gerrard to staying at the club beyond this year.
Yeah, I think I think it'll take a bit of pressure off him as well. He was under a high amount of pressure this year. If he hadn't stopped 10 in a row, the writing would have been very much on the wall. So I do think he will feel a bit more comfortable in the role. He's not the type of guy that will rest in his laurels, but I do think at least another season with the potential of big European nights, as you say, with the potential of turning over Celtic again for a second season, I think that would be a lot better for him prior to going into a bigger role, maybe going down to be manager of Liverpool.
You're all right.
I think the writing will be on the wall. I think he'll do that role eventually.
Sheikhy, I think, one thing, Dave, sorry to butt in, would be whoever Celtic appoint next year is critical because, as you mentioned there, if Gerrard wins the league, right? He's done it. Happy days. Someone might come in from down south. But if Celtic appoint a real game changer manager, Gerrard's got that competitive edge. He's going to be like, do you know what?
Exactly.
I've got to prove it again this year, and I'm going to take him on. So it's a lot down to Celtic whether that guy stays as well.
That's the thing as well, because if a new manager comes in, that gives Gerrard the edge, obviously, because he's settled in. He's had now 3 seasons, and like Sheikhy mentioned, he was under a lot of pressure this year. Like the first season, he had a lot of work to do, a lot of turnover in the squad. He had to implement his ideas, his style of play. Last season, Celtic had clearly dropped off, and Rangers were looking really, really good up until they had that dip. So you look at from the 26th of January, they lose to Hearts. Then they don't win back-to-back games till the season stops on the 8th of March. They beat Ross County, draw with Aberdeen, beat Hibernian, lose to Kilmarnock, beat Livingston, draw with St Johnstone, draw with Hamilton. That's what cost them the league. That's why when football stopped and they decided to just give it points per game, it was Celtic's title, because up until then, Rangers were looking very much like title contenders. But that little mini sort of dip or collapse or whatever you want to call it, that put huge pressure on Gerrard coming into this season. Obviously, he's just wiped the floor with Celtic and Lennon and everybody else this season. So next season, he's got the advantage of it's a new manager. But as Flanners says, it's also that competitive. If it is Rafa, just say it's Rafa. Stevie Gerrard is going to do laps of his house, delighted with himself, because now he's got a really top manager to go against. And if he can prove himself over a couple of seasons beating a top manager, then his options start to open up, because like Lennon won titles with Celtic. The best job he could get was Bolton. O'Neill won titles. I think he went to Villa from Celtic, mid-table. Leicester were mid-table when Rodgers took over. He'd won 3 in a row, 3 trebles, unbelievable. But none of them got a top job. None of them got a big 6 club offer. Gerrard, at the moment, if he was to say in the summer, I'm leaving Rangers, I want to go manage in England, Newcastle would make him an offer. I don't think he'd go there because the owner's a lunatic. I think Fulham would make him an offer if they stay up. None of the big 6 would go. None of the big 6 will have an opening, I wouldn't say. Leicester won't have an opening. Wolves might be the best job he could get in the Premier League right now. Wolves. If he was to outdo Rafa for a couple of years and do well in the Champions League, then maybe if Spurs or Arsenal came open, then he's in that picture. And I think for him, he'd rather that, because he'll look at Rangers and go, massive club, success every year, can win titles, cups, into Europe every year, going against the best clubs, decent budget, not massive, but decent budget. I can attract players here, unbelievable fan base, stadium packed every game, atmosphere off the charts. Do I really want to go to Crystal Palace with a smaller stadium, the same budget, much more competitive league, not going to win anything. I don't think he does. I think he'll want to wait for a better job than what will be available this summer. And one of the big things that can help him get there is Celtic appoints someone good and he does well against them for a couple of years, wins a couple of titles. And remember, like, one title, Ronnie Delia has two. Gerrard's going to want 2 or 3 minimum to really be able to say, well, look what I've done at Rangers. One title in Scotland.
Yeah,
bad managers have done that.
That's what I was going to add as well. I don't think he came here just to win one title. I don't think that leaves him, you know, Steven Gerrard, legendary status at Rangers, winning one title. Strikes me as the kind of, he's young. He's young in the job. He's a young man. He's got many years ahead of him as a manager. I don't think he's going to be rushing out of Glasgow after going through the tough times. He really has been through the tough times. You know, he wasn't able to win the title when he first got here. He's had to play second fiddle to Celtic, and now he's getting he's getting the praise, he's getting the exposure. I think it would be madness for him to leave Rangers, like you said, to go to the kind of roles that could be, you know, there for him. No point. You know, play again. Win the title again. Do well in Europe. I still think Benitez is a long shot, but if it happens, then I'm sure the media would have an absolute field day because they've got history and they would build that up into a cauldron, and it would be it might be what convinces, if a Benitez was to consider to come, it might just be, you know what, I want to go and stick one up Stevie Gerrard for all that shite he gave me when I was at Liverpool.
That's it.
It'd be but then Steven Gerrard will probably look at it from the point of view of, this guy again. Now I get the chance.
But also, like, Rangers is the better path to a big job. Winning titles and playing in the Champions League with Rangers will get more eyeballs on you than finishing 12th or 14th with Crystal Palace.
Yeah. And I think if you look at what Sir Alex Ferguson did back in the day, you know, he was at Aberdeen for 8 years, right? He cemented himself as a manager. Gerrard's just, I think it would be interesting as well, when it wasn't always going according to plan in his early days as a manager at Rangers, you could see little bits and a little bit of cracks and a little bit of changes in temperament. And that's obviously came out of his sort of repertoire this year as a manager. But I think it's, as we've mentioned in the previous show, was maybe it's something to do with the crowd, Rangers fans not getting on the back if it was going quieter. It'd be interesting to see, with the right manager at Celtic, with the crowd back in, and a little bit more competitive edge from Celtic, will Gerrard start to crack again? Because I think they've played amazing football this year. He's done well. He's dealt with the media really well. But the competition, the pressure's not.
It's easy when you're winning.
I don't see him cracking now if under that kind of pressure. I think you're right. I think he was. I think it was a learning curve for him. Remember, he was new to being in manager position. He'd never been under that kind of pressure. Coming to Rangers, a big club, especially when you've got Celtic breathing down your neck, one of the biggest rivalry in club football. Obviously, it's going to have an effect on you. But I think for him being through that experience will stand him in far better stead moving forward. And again, another reason why a couple more years at Rangers, win some more titles, build your CV up even more, and then go down to the Premiership to get a top 6 position. Why do you? I'm curious to know. Surely, the legendary Steven Gerrard is somebody that Liverpool fans want to see eventually. Why all the negativity towards that potential future appointment?
Well, a big part of it is what we saw last season and the willingness to just throw players under the bus when things were going wrong. We've seen that this season with Lampard. Like, as soon as things started to go wrong for Lampard, all the players under the bus. It's not my fault. The coaching's great. Gerrard was like that last season. It's easier to do it when you're winning and you don't have that pressure. So that's one of the things you'll want to see from Gerrard next season. If things do go a little bit badly, or he has more competition and some of the results don't go his way, does he react the same way he did then, or has he learned from that? But for me, like, who was the last manager we took from Rangers who'd been a great player? Graham Souness. Graham Souness, arguably the best midfielder who's ever played for England, arguably the best British midfielder of all time, won a bunch of titles with Rangers, took over in a similar enough situation where they were at a low ebb. Celtic were dominant, and Aberdeen had become a really like incredible force under Ferguson. Souness takes over, does really well, comes to Liverpool, and now when you ask Liverpool fans about Graham Souness, his legacy is spoiled because of what happened when he was a manager. And as well as that, like, not to be bad, but it's one season out of 3 that he's done well. That to me is a big issue. Doesn't have the experience. One season out of 3, yet to see anything in the Champions League. I want to see how he does in adversity. I want to see how he does trying to defend a title, because I look at Liverpool this season and it was easy to win the league last year. Trying to defend it this year, now we've had catastrophic injury problems, but at the same time, I'm learning more about Jurgen Klopp this year than I did last year or the year before.
Are you liking it, Dave, or not?
Yeah, no, I am. Like, he was been a bit spiky with the media for a while, and everybody was wondering, like, is the pressure starting to get to him? And then it obviously comes out that his mother had died 2 weeks before, and he hadn't allowed anybody to mention it to the media. So you kind of understand it there, but it's not even that. It's watching his interactions with the players, watching how when he's asked questions about, why is this going wrong? He's not immediately grabbing for an excuse. He's trying to explain, yeah, everybody needs to improve. We need to improve. I need to improve. The tactics are off. The training is off. Maybe we need to alter this. And watching how he changes in game, like last night, Liverpool's shape in game was much different than it has been recently. And that's a nice reaction to see him have to a run of bad results. And that's the kind of thing I want to see from Gerrard. Next season, if the 4-3-3 isn't working, if your fullbacks are getting clamped down the way Trent and Robbo have this season, how do you react? Where are the goals coming from if those fullbacks aren't a constant source of creativity and goals? And, we'll learn more about Gerrard over the next couple of years. And as I say, I'd rather watch him develop at at Rangers rather, going against Celtic, than piddling around in mid-table in the Premier League. Like, he's Steven Gerrard. He's the greatest player of my generation. Suarez is the best player I've ever seen play for Liverpool. Gerrard was greater than Suarez because he did it for longer. And like that reputation, those memories, I remember watching Gerrard play like his entire career, but from 2003 until about midway through 2009, he was just a force of nature. And I saw that guy win us game after game after game. There's a generation of Liverpool fans who are younger than me who only really remember the last couple of years, and they wonder what the hype was about. And I'd hate for a generation still to come to see him as manager and go, this guy's a legend. Like, I don't want that. I don't want any of the legendary players. I didn't want Kenny to come back. He was grand as a caretaker. I didn't want him to stay because I felt that it spoiled his legacy. In a way, it did. A lot of people don't think as strongly of him as they did, which is a shame. I worry it'd be the same with Gerrard. That's my big thing. I just don't want him to come back and it to go wrong.
I can understand that. I mean, winning the Champions League, it's going to be tough to top. But will he be enticed by the potential of trying to win the Premier League as a manager? That would be something. He didn't achieve it as a player, so that must be. And let's be honest, he is a Liverpool man.
Of course he is. This is the thing I know. He could go to Spurs and win the league, and if Liverpool called him, he would walk from London to Merseyside, take that job. Yeah, no matter what, he could go to Real Madrid and win Champions Leagues, and if Liverpool called him, he would go back to Liverpool. So for me, I know he's always going to be an option, but I need to see him do it, and I need to know it's going to work. Like, I knew Klopp was going to work because he'd won the Bundesliga. I'd need to see Gerrard win a top 5 league with a big club, manage it day to day, see how he deals with everything. And with the greatest respect to the Scottish Premier League, it's not the same thing. It's not the same as going against a Bayern or managing a Bayern. It's not the same as going against Real or managing Real or Juventus or Milan or any of those clubs. I need to see him do it at the highest level for a couple of years to know that he's a manager capable of that level. Because unfortunately for him, Liverpool are now at a level where they can't really reach down anymore. It can't be another Brendan Rodgers type. It can't be a Hodgson type. It has to be another Klopp. It has to be somebody on Klopp's level, or the risk of drop off is too much. That's the big thing for me. And I just would worry with Stevie, with the automatic pressure that would come with being Liverpool manager and the lunatics that follow Liverpool as a club. And like, we had a couple of bad results, and there were Liverpool accounts on social media demanding the Klopp get sacked, demanding that he go. He just won a league title. Imagine if Gerrard came in and struggled. Within 6 months, half the fan, but not half the fan base, but all the 14-year-olds would be up in arms. Who's this for? To get rid of him? I remember him for his last couple of years was he was awful. And it would just spoil everything that he has built at Liverpool.
Well, we'll be watching with keen interest to see what happens. I feel sorry for Jurgen Klopp. He was obviously a very close bond. Losing your mother is one of the biggest things that can happen to a person in their life when it comes to trauma. And it made me really sad when I seen his press conference recently, and the way that he broke down. And football can be cruel, really, really cruel. Hero last year, winning the title, and then you've got people calling for his sack. It's a bloody cruel world that we live in. The man is a fine manager. He's probably not at his full strength at the moment, and I think that's probably taken his toll on him. But come on, he's a legendary manager. I'm sure if given time, he could still bounce back and change things around at Liverpool. So I think we're all getting a bit far ahead of ourselves, and the fans that are calling for it to remove him is just calm down a wee bit.
Let's be honest.
It happens.
Let's be honest, Sheikhy. When the crowd get back into Anfield and they get a full strength squad again, because it doesn't matter when anyone says they've been absolutely decimated with injuries this year.
Yeah.
This season's gone. It's finished. If they finish in the top four, it's a good achievement now for where they are. And I think anyone who wants Klopp's resignation needs to give their head a wobble, is a saying I've seen a few times kicking about Twitter.
Yeah.
Something else I want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, madness.
Sorry, Dave. You were saying, nah, it's madness.
No, I was going to say it's absolute madness to be asking for him to go. Lunacy.
No, I'm glad you're talking sense on that front, because when I've been hearing it, I've just been thinking, bloody hell, man, that's cruel to say the least. I mean, he's a fine manager. The players love him. He's a good person. He brings so much passion to the club. And all right, he's had a couple of spats at the media. It happens. It can happen.
Happened to Fergie. Like Fergie obviously was dominant at United from the early 90s through to when he left. But the Arsenal Invincible team, and then that team Mourinho built for 2 seasons, they're 2 of the best teams the Premier League has ever seen. If Twitter had been around at that point, you can be guaranteed there would have been 14-year-olds on there demanding the Ferguson go, because it had been 3 years without a title. And I'm like, imagine how spiky Ferguson would have gotten if there was the constant coverage the way there is now. Like, Fergie was spiky at the best of times, but like, it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
It'd been redder than that red wine he drinks, I tell you.
Aye. Right, back to the north. I want to come to your good self, Flanners. Good, amazing weekend for a smaller club now, but St Johnstone, amazing achievement, won the League Cup, and I know you've got one of your big pals over there as well, David Witherspoon, known as Spoonie, who's been on the podcast, and you gave a great interview with him. But did you see the game, and what was your thoughts on that?
To be honest, Sheikhy, the game was absolutely garbage. It was not a fine advertisement for Scottish football. However, the result is what counts. And to be honest, to see David, that's St Johnstone now lift 2 trophies in 7 years. So they've won the Scottish Cup and they won the League Cup. And David, I think he's the only St Johnstone player to ever win 2 trophies for his club. So he's a history maker. I even seen that the Canadian soccer team tweeted about it yesterday, because David obviously has a Canadian passport, so he's played alongside Alphonso Davies, who won the Champions League for Bayern Munich. I've actually tried to get him on the show, but I don't think he'll understand my accent, and Alphonso Davies is a bit too big time for me. So we'll see.
Nobody's too big time for you, mate. You need to lose this attitude. You need to realise that you're too big time for the rest. So I'll make it happen, mate. Make it happen.
If things go wrong, just blame Sheikhy. That's what you do.
I know, I will. But I think it was great to see. I think, Livingston are a club playing under a very, very controversial figure at the moment in terms of their manager. There was a background of, being involved in some big sort of drug organisations, and he's turned around Livingston Football Club this year. They've been a club who's been hard to beat. Went off the radar a little bit last sort of 5-10 games. But St Johnstone, they turned up. They battered Hibs in the semi-final with my beloved team. They hammered us, and for them to lift the trophy yesterday, it was a big achievement for them. So I was absolutely delighted to see that and see David and have a really good St Johnstone's squad do well. And so and I suppose touching on Hibs as well. I think the last time I was on the pod with Dave and yourself, I sort of was disillusioned with Hibs, and we're sitting on 52 points in third place, but we just sums of us. We're 5 games unbeaten, I think, there, and we went and got beat 2-0 at Motherwell. So it's such a hard club to work out at the moment. But yeah, I think the game yesterday, the cup final, it wasn't the best of football, but congratulations to Johnstone, and well done, David, as well.
No, it's brilliant. It was brilliant. It's been seen and branded all over social media since yesterday. The lad Liam Craig as well. Both of them have been getting a lot of coverage, and they deserve it. You play for a smaller club. All the attention, as it has been on this show. Again, it's hard not to be, is on Rangers and Celtic, and I like to see.
And a young Scottish manager as well, Callum Davidson, his first year in the job. So congratulations to him as well. That's just fantastic.
But this is a brilliant season for Scottish football. Rangers winning the title after so long, the dominance of Celtic ending, St Johnstone winning the League Cup. That's brilliant. That's the type of thing that will help grow the sport. It's boring when Rangers and Celtic win everything every year. Yep. St Johnstone winning the cup is absolutely brilliant. And it's a shame we didn't get to do this pod last week, because Flanners, you'd have been coming on a high after four wins in a row in the league. Obviously disappointing performance at the weekend, but it just goes to show how quick you can turn things around. You guys were looking atrocious through the late December through January, but that 4-game run, I watched the Dundee game and the Hibs game, and you're really good in both of those. I was really impressed by some of the football that was played. And that's, again, when you get Hibs doing well and going on good runs, or you get Aberdeen doing well or whatever, those type of things are more beneficial to the future of Scottish football than Celtic winning the league every year. And I say that as a Celtic fan. The worst thing that's happened to Scottish football in the last decade is the collapse of Rangers, Hearts getting relegated, and Celtic dominating everything. It's the worst thing that could have happened.
Yeah, I think, if you watch the Hibs team, they played some decent football, and and I think Lennon sort of got us playing a bit better football as well. But I think under Jack Ross, he's flattered to deceive. But and I've been sort of thinking to myself all year, is he the guy to take us forward? But we've just snuck up the lead. We've just ticked over. And I think the lad Newell in the middle of the park's very good, and that lad Jackson Irvine as well, the Australian boy. So it's I still think they're a bit shaky at the back, and but if they can beat Aberdeen to finish in the top 3, that's a massive achievement for Jack Ross. And you're right, nothing better than any other team than the old firm winning trophies. That's a fact. It just makes you believe that there's actually something out there, like 2017 when we beat the mighty Rangers at Hampden. What a day!
I agree. I think it was very refreshing to see St Johnstone get over the line. It makes a change. This whole thing that we've just got a pub league up here, and there's only 2 teams up here. It
kills that, doesn't it?
That kills that. It kills that. It shows that there are other good football teams up here who can compete. Maybe not over the course of a full league season, but in a cup, they can get on a run, and the Rangers and Celtic can be beat on any given Sunday. And I think it's great for Scottish football. I think it's been a fantastic season to date in Scottish football. We've still got the Old Firm to come. Do you have any aspirations of a final little Celtic party that they could get a win against Rangers, Dave?
No, do you know what? I'd actually rather that the title was done and dusted, and everybody at Celtic could just go, right, it's over. Because while it's hanging there above them, I just think it's a bit of a cloud over the club. And I think the best thing that can happen to Celtic now is just Rangers to be crowned champions. Now, obviously, I'd rather lose in the weeks coming up to it. So, like, we've one game before that. I'd rather lose that game and have it be over and done with before the Old Firm than actually lose it to your lads. But like I say, it needs to happen. It's great for Scottish football for Rangers to win. It's great for St Johnstone to win the cup. And like for a manager like Callum Davidson, Flanners mentions his first year as a senior manager. If he can win a cup there, and maybe next season he gets fourth in the league, or wins another cup in a couple of years, that's going to propel him forward in his career. And what's class for me is, like, you could ask me about the League Cup final from 3 years ago. Couldn't tell you a thing about it. Watched it, forgot about it. Flanners will always remember 2017. St Johnstone fans will always remember winning this cup and the cup 7 years ago. They're always going to remember that. You're probably the same, Sheikhy. When Rangers were dominant and winning everything just kind of molds into one, and you don't really savor them. You don't really take the time to sit back and think that's a great achievement. It's just part of what you do as a Rangers or Celtic fan. But when you're supporting the other clubs, those are the things that you live for, and those are the things you'll always remember, and you'll tell your kids about, your grandkids about, and they're what will bring new generations of fans to Hibs, to St Johnstone, to Aberdeen, or whoever. It's that type of thing that's what's really good about football.
Yeah, that's what makes football, isn't it? It's those memories that gives you the chance and the opportunity to experience that with your family, and there's no other feeling. And it must be quite difficult for Rangers and Celtic fans to feel that emotion, because it's just, it becomes so natural and the norm for them, doesn't it? So
gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've discussed many good points. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Celtic and to see who they might appoint as the next manager. I've got my fingers crossed for you that you do get somebody really big in, Dave, and somebody that really gets the juices flowing, and we see a real rivalry between two big, well, not Steven Gerrard, still a work in progress, but he's well on his way to becoming a successful manager if he has a few more good years at Rangers and then moves on. So
I just want to see them snipe at each other. I want to see every press conference just descend into slagging each other off. It'd be brilliant.
Celtic and Rangers are pantomime at the best of time, isn't it?
It would be, and I think
I will say Rafa wouldn't be my first choice, but that's more because I want to see him in England. But again, it's a pipe dream. Ralph Rangnick would be the one I'd want. He would be brilliant. He'd just come in, reshape the club top to bottom. Look what he did with Leipzig. He would be the one I'd want. But again, it's a pipe dream.
We'll be watching this space closely, but before that, we'll be watching very closely as Rangers win the title. We'll be watching very closely with Rangers hopefully progressing further in Europe. Again, congratulations to St Johnstone Football Club. I think it's fitting that we finish with talking about them. Congrats to their manager, to all their fan base, everybody at the club. Just to finish with, our guest today, Dave Hendrick. You can check him out by simply searching him on Twitter at Two Footed Podcast. The man has a wealth of knowledge. He's quite entertaining, I would say, to say the least, to listen to him for an hour straight. He can go on some great rants, but his knowledge of the game is incredible. So check him out, people. As I mentioned at the start, you can find us by searching Sheikhy's Sports Journeys. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean. If you want to listen to a little bit more of me and Flanners, we've got some really cool stuff coming up. Some guests that will shock a few people, I'm sure. And it's been an absolute pleasure, gentlemen. Take care of yourself. Till the next time.
Cheers, mate.